Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q2 and of FY22 earnings conference call of Craftsman Automation Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Srinivasan Ravi, Chairman and Managing Director of Craftsman Automation Limited. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Srinivasan Ravi.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Srinivasan Ravi. It gives me immense pleasure to welcoming you all for the earnings call for the quarter and half year ended September 21st. September 21, FY 2021-22. I will keep this introduction of the financials very, very brief because it is this Q2 is not strictly comparable with the Q2 of last year, and even H1 is not comparable with H1 of last year. So I will just run briefly through the highlights, which will give us more time for the Q&A. The sales numbers are with you, so I will just put across. Yes, we have clocked 1,000 crore. This was 526 crore in the same H1 last year. PBT has been 111 crore. I will straight away go to the financial other numbers of the ratios. Debt equity from last financial year, I'm comparing last full financial year versus H1. The debt equity has improved from 0.72 to 0.69. The debt to EBITDA has improved from 1.57 to 1.45. The EBITDA margin has decreased from 29% last year to H1 of this year to 25%. This is mainly because of the raw material commodity price increase. EBIT margin has been 16% last year, and for the full year, and H1 has been 15%, more or less the same. The PBT was 10% in the last financial year and 11% for H1. PAT margins were 6% last year. For H1, it has been 7%. ROCE last year was 16% and pre-tax, of course, and ROCE annualized for H1 has been 18%. ROE was 11% last year, and this year was ROE annualized 14%, again pre-tax. EPS last year was 48.02 rupees, and this year it has been, this first half annualized has been 68.32. The H1 has been somewhat a mixed bag, I would say. There are still a lot of shortages in the industry. You may say chip shortage, you may say commodity problems of price or shipping issues. So we didn't have smooth sailing. So in fact, we have clocked EBITDA which is slightly lower than Q4 as a benchmark. In this Q2, we have clocked EBITDA of 144 crore. The service 156 crore in Q4. Whereas our PAT has been 49 crore, which is highest ever compared to last Q4 PAT of 47 crore. So we have still not utilized our capacities. I think some segments have been doing better, some segments are still lagging. More of that will come in the Q&A. So yeah, we can leave the floor open for questions, please.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Dhaval Shah from Swan Investments. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi sir. Congratulations on good top line growth. Sir, if you can throw some light on with regards to with regards to the margin reduction and which segment led to the margin reduction. So firstly, if I read correctly, aluminum has seen a good comeback as you guided in the last interaction with regards to monthly pricing. I think that has helped us. And but confused on the powertrain side, given we are more on the machining side and the raw material cost is not on us. So what happened on the powertrain side, and also in the industrial engineering, we have lost a big margin. So if you can explain us and also guide for current year, what do you see in terms of demand, profitability? Yeah, that's my first question.
On auto powertrain business, of course, there are some products which we are buying the castings. So that commodity price is a straight pass-through, but that will only inflate our top line. So it will not add to our EBITDA margins. So it will practically look a little depressed, the EBITDA margins. So the value addition portion will not be strictly comparable as we go ahead. And number two was we had some repair and maintenance, which we took up some activity post the pandemic when people were available. I think that is not going to be there throughout the year, that the increase of say 10-11 crore on the repair and maintenance. These two things have affected the...
Sir, what was the amount for repair and maintenance?
I think around 10 crores.
Okay, so 10 crores straight get added to our profitability in the current quarter.
And the commodity price increase, even though we are not affected on the profitability point of view, the top line we pass it through to our esteemed foundry partners. That time what happens is the price increase only inflate the top line, so it will not have any margin. So that will look like a slightly depressed EBITDA.
Correct. So our profit per unit remains same, if I understand correctly. That's what you mean.
Yes. The only thing that's changed internally has been the repair and maintenance. That's all, nothing else. Not much on the other operating expenditure.
Okay, so with increasing steel prices, our margins will look different.
Yes, look different. See, the casting price has gone up by 20 rupees, 30 rupees a kilo. So what has happened is we have passed it on, customer has given to us and we passed it on. Wherever we are buying the castings, I would say. So that would have inflated the top line. So strictly speaking, our Q2 number, top line number is not comparable with Q4 number. We have to knock off 20-30 crore, which is only the commodity price inflation. So our Q2 sales has been apple to apple, I think at least 7-8%, 9% lower than Q4.
Yeah, 30 crores.
Okay. You mean to say the absolute volume?
Sir, I think the two things. The Q4 top line number was at a different steel price, different cast iron price, different aluminum price. And today we are operating at a different price in Q2, which is around 15% higher on the raw material prices. So the impact on the top line from Q4 to Q2 would have been around 20 odd crore. We have to look at it, which has only inflated the top line.
Got it. And you said 10 crores of extra expenses we undertook. So 86 plus 10. So we are almost at the same run rate as the fourth quarter in terms of EBIT.
Yes.
Okay. And would you like to give any volume, how much volume did we do in the powertrain business? Because that's more important to look at this.
I can give the value addition for H1 on the powertrain business. The value addition wise was for H1 on the powertrain was 361 crore, vis-a-vis for the full year 542 last year.
Okay, fine. So, and what was the utilization in the current quarter?
Again, I would say mixed. I think overall utilization for the quarter would have been around 60 odd %.
How much? 60?
Yeah, 60 odd %, yes.
Of the powertrain business?
Yes.
Okay, which was around 75-80% in the fourth quarter.
No, again on the, I would say that we have to look at it in a slightly different way. We have to say the value addition portion, most of it came in Q4 last year. And this year it has been spread over 2 quarters, I would say, totally. There's not too much difference between Q1 and Q2. So that way, I think utilization has been more or less at the lower level. In Q4 last year, I think February and March we had a good utilization level.
Now, given the CV cycle is also now firming up as you had expected, so should we see a higher value addition going forward? And why was the value addition not higher in the current quarter compared to the March quarter?
See, I would say that the whole of last year we did 542 crore, and it's good that we have done 361 crore in H1. So normally H1 is weaker than H2 as a whole. So pro rata, we look at it 361 crore into 2, we'll do 722 crores, which will be at least 20% higher minimum. If the market picks up, yes, we'll do more.
Okay. And industrial engineering, what happened? We lost a lot of margin, and also the difference between the storage solution and high-end precision product sales.
If you look at it, in the I&E, bulk of the sales was driven by storage solutions. We did more than the whole of last year in H1 itself. We look at it. And the steel prices impact and our entry pricing strategy with certain large corporate clients, I think this is one of the reasons. Site readiness or delay because of this pandemic and these issues added to our cost of operations.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you very clearly. Can you repeat the last line? And also, how much revenue did we do in the storage solution?
34.
We did 70 crore in the last year.
Yeah, we did 104 crore in last year. In H1, we did 134 crore.
Okay, 134 crore in storage solutions. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, H1.
Yeah, the last sentence you didn't hear. I said because of the pandemic, certain states were giving some trouble, of course, for people to enter. Some erection delay was there because of controls. So I think our cost also ballooned there. Plus, the commodity price was not at all stable in the steel. This also has impacted our profitability. And we also consciously did some entry-level pricing for some corporate clients to establish firmly against the number one company in India. So we had gained some orders that is reflecting in our top line of 134 crore in H1.
Achha. So what should we pencil in, assume in terms of the margin for the rest of the year for this segment?
Q3 will be not so stable. I think Q4 we will be better. So I don't want to comment on the margins today because there is a very a tough situation in the marketplace where everybody wants a bigger piece of the cake. So I would rather reserve my comments later on the storage solutions.
Okay. And on the aluminium side, again, we have seen a very steep increase in the aluminium prices. So will this monthly pricing take care, or will see some impact in the third quarter?
Sir, I would like to correct myself. It is not exactly monthly pricing. I would say weighted average calculation, which is more reflecting the true nature of the pricing, I would say. So it is a more fair pricing method, not a monthly pricing method, I would say. So earlier it was on a trailing quarter. Now it is on a live quarter, which is more live to the situation about how much is being produced and what are the pricing. So there can be little subtle differences here and there between each customer, but all of them are resigned to the fact it cannot be that it can be on a old number. That's all. I would not say it's a monthly number. So
broadly,
having said that, having said that, the commodity price correction is getting fairly passed through. Maybe still there is some room for improvement, but I would say we are not on the receiving side in a big way. So that way we are okay. And look at that has improved our operations, and we also have cut down our operating costs in a big way, totally, adjusting to the new requirements of the capacity requirements of the customer. The top growth may be because of the price increase, but the capacity utilization is far below 50%. I would say 40-45% only has been the capacity utilization. In spite of the capacity utilization, we turned a bit positive. At least look at the H1 itself. And Q2, I think a bit positive was slightly stronger.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll come back in the queue. Yeah.
Yes, even in the aluminum, because of the bulk of it, we are supplying to the two-wheeler industry, 80% or 90% of our sales. It has been very depressed, the two-wheeler sales. In spite of that, I think we had a positive EBIT in H1 and a good number in Q2, if you look at it.
Okay. Fair enough, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nishit Jalan from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Congratulations on good set of numbers. So my first question is on the aluminum segment. In this segment, we are looking to get more customers to diversify away from just the two-wheeler OEMs that we are supplying right now. So just wanted to check any progress in terms of new order range from other customers that we have seen in the aluminum segment. And my second question is...
Yes, please tell me.
My second question was on the export side. We have one of our big customers using our products on the CV side and exporting the final engines and everything on the powertrain segment. And we do have a fair bit of exports on the industrial engineering segment as well. So just wanted to check how is the export business shaping up because globally, at least what we hear is at least in Europe and US, the CV industry is doing very well. So just wanted to understand how was exports in this quarter, and secondly, in the aluminum segment, any new order wins that we can highlight or any new plans that we have had?
On the auto aluminum, on the new customer, I would like to update the Stellantis requirement. We had, I think, good interaction visit from the top level people, and they have reiterated that this product is going to be live until 2027. The volumes, whatever the contract volumes, are going to be intact. In fact, they're preponing, but after 2027, it is a question mark. This is going for a gasoline engine, and this is also going for a mild hybrid engine. So I think they may have reduced supplies elsewhere from another supplier in Europe, but our volumes are intact. So we are not, whatever we have told the order win of around 200 crore over the period of 4 or 5 years. It is intact. We are starting the supply mainly in FY23, little in some trial batches in FY22, but I think 23 will be a good start, and it will peak up in 24, and it will go on at full blast until 2027. So I think that is okay. That is one good news. Second thing is we have received some order from the North American market for aluminum high pressure die casting parts. I don't want to reveal the name of the customer until we win the order. It's not a big order, but I think some beginning is getting made there. But Europe is very, very fluid on aluminum exports, and even North America, because of the EV and the transition into different parts. So things are not very, very clear. So we are waiting and watching. We have queries from North America again for the EV, for the passenger buses, but I don't want to. It is too early, and the design is keeping changed, so they might not leave. The suppliers will be selected will be again North American suppliers. The product has to stabilize, or the design has to stabilize. So I think as we stand, I think we are good to go on the passenger vehicle segment with the Stellantis order. So I will then go to the next part of your question on the auto powertrain. The Tier 2 exports are to Brazil for the cylinder block and cylinder head. That is going strong. One very good news is that already the customer has just moved into Euro 6 requirements, and the Euro 6 requirement will remain in the country, Brazil, until 2030. So our business is secure. Today, with that customer, 80% of our revenue comes from, or 75% of the revenue comes from the export business, and 20% from their Indian operations, I would say. So Indian operations, our business is secure until 2027, where they might not move to BS7 requirement with the same engine platform. Some changes may come, but the good news is our Brazil exports will continue. The second good thing about the auto powertrain business is that through our customer, even we know that we are supplying to North America and to Europe for axles for the Class 8 trucks and also the smaller trucks also. There we have started getting inquiries for e-axles, and the For the heavy-duty trucks, I think the business of axle parts is going strong. In fact, we have purchased land additionally, almost adjacent to our current plant for a brownfield expansion, which may occur within a year or two. So we have fortified our operations in Chennai to look for huge growth, at least in, if not in 23, in 24, because as we see that China is becoming more expensive, and there is a de-risking policy which all the global majors are taking forward. I think more inquiries are coming in that segment. In the third part of your question is exports on the I&D. We have a backlog of orders I&D which we are not able to fulfill for various reasons in H1. So we are a little behind schedule. Also the shipping lines are also behind schedule. Some free supply parts or imported parts also reached us late. So we are on pro rata on the sales on I&D on the direct exports on H1, but we are looking towards a stronger H2 on the I&D exports.
Thank you. Sir, two follow-ups. Firstly, on the aluminum product segment, you mentioned that you have won some orders from the North America customer. Sir, can you highlight which products and which segment are we looking to supply? Not asking for a client name, but commercial segment, PV segment, and which product exactly are we looking to supply over there?
Sorry, it is under inquiry stage and it is going well. That's what I said. I didn't say that we won the order at all. And it's a small order also. The very fact is, even though small order, big order, I think the very fact that we can export to North America now in the situation is a good sign that our products are competitive enough, even after the shipping cost or increased shipping cost, is a good sign what we said. We have not won any order as of now.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification. And then secondly, you did mention that on the export side, on tier 2 exports to Brazil, your order is secured till FY30 because they will not move to BS7. So don't you think that when the customer moves to BS7, ideally your supplies will continue, or there will be some technical issues, technological issues and all that you will face, because of which you may not be able to supply them when the customer needs to move towards BS7 norms or Euro 7 norms?
Our capability to supply, it is a question of the migration which is happening in Europe and North America, mainly in Europe, I would say.
Okay.
Even the competitors are collaborating with each other. And Daimler and Volvo formed a joint venture to do hydrogen fuel cells for the trucks. They are doing some R&D. And the global engine manufacturer, North American manufacturers, tied up with various OEMs for looking at consolidation of engines. If the sharing of engines was not there, or powertrains were not there in the truck segment earlier, only in the passenger vehicle segment, we have known companies like Daimler, Renault, Nissan, Peugeot, all of them sharing engines, even BMW sharing engines with other competitive manufacturers. But we have not seen that in the past in commercial vehicle segment. But we may see that given the huge R&D cost moving towards new emission norms, or also the technological change which is expected in this cell. So we cannot comment anything beyond 2030. What we are trying to say, there are many countries which are still at emission level 2 and 3. We have some orders from that customers on pickup trucks, like one Japanese major company. They want to consolidate their manufacturing in India, and we are supplying the cylinder block and the head for them. So we see more volume then. Today, the bulk of their exports are in Tier 2, Tier 2 and Tier 3. It's not even Tier 4. Not even BS4, I would say. It's mostly BS3, which is exported. So I think our powertrain business is more or less secure until 2027. Most of it is secure, I think more than 80%. And we are to 2027, 5-10%, there will be a change. Until 2030, I don't see any threat to our powertrain business, because our dependence on passenger vehicle segment is very minimum. It is more on the commercial vehicles, heavy-duty commercial vehicles, followed by farm sector and concession machinery, and a small segment which is the passenger vehicles. And we also do some industrial engines also. That we don't see much change. So I would say we'll be more stable till 2030.
Correct. So just one last thing from my side. You talked about export of some Excel products to North America for the classic truck or other segment. So you will be supplying these products directly to the OEMs, or you will be supplying to the tier one suppliers who will be assembling the final axles and all, and then basically they will be supplying to the OEMs. And what kind of parts?
Yeah, we will be tier two. We are working with an esteemed foundry partner here, and they have got some North American operations, and they are giving to the axle manufacturers, and the axle manufacturers we are only giving the parts. So I think the inquiries are quite strong, and the one good thing is no foundry new capacity on the cast iron. The auto powertrain depends on cast iron castings. Whatever is aluminum will be classified as auto aluminum. So one good thing is no new capacity is coming up in a big way in North America or Europe. And with China, with the global warming and power crisis and their labor costs going up and their shrinking workforce, more and more, I think India being a very big possibility, everybody is looking at India for global supply now.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishal from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for taking my question. Sir, I have one question on industrial and engineering business. Sir, we have seen for last 4-5 quarters, your EBIT margin has been consistently decreasing. So, sir, one question is regarding what is the sustainable level of EBIT margin you try to maintain going forward, and given the scenario stabilizes both in terms of demand and pricing, what is the target EBIT margin you target for this business going ahead?
Okay, I will answer this question in two different ways. I would say that we have in this I&D, we have one segment which is the traditional I&D where we are doing contract manufacturing. Also, we have some products for the casting for the electrical industry. We also are doing contract manufacturing in a big way there, and some hoists and other things. And we have some automated storage solutions also in the I&D. We also have a barebone I&D business, which is the racking business, which is material intensive. So there, unfortunately, we would say that the steel price has more or less increased by 60-70% in the last 1.5 years, which has put a lot, almost double. So the pressure has put a lot of pressure on us, and that was the business we are growing in the last few quarters, I would say. So it looks like, and we are given some entry pricing strategy, which I mentioned earlier, to get a reasonable size of business and also have visibility in the market through our products with the various e-commerce players, 3PL and various segments. So we are today a force to reckon with in the storage business. That's one good sign. There's a price to pay when we're ramping up and we're entering into a new market. Yes, the EBIT by itself today, I think it is low. On Q2, I think the EBIT on I&D has been around, say, 12 crore. And April to September has been only 23 crore. This is quite less. But second half, we'll have more exports, direct exports on the I&D, which will boost our EBIT margins. And the absolute EBIT numbers, I would say, the more than EBIT margin, because the top line is changing very often on the commodity prices. So I think what we see as 23 crore as H1, we will see a much higher number in H2 on EBIT.
Okay. So, sir, just a follow-up question on this. What kind of margins are you target perhaps when the demand and both pricing scenario stabilizes? Will it return back to 20 levels, or it will remain at around 10-15 odd levels?
EBIT levels, realistically, because of the new commodity prices, the top line is getting inflated artificially. So I would say EBIT levels we can target 15%.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, my second question is...
Yeah, if you look at it, we were at 12% EBIT for Q2. So I don't see 15% EBIT levels on I&D as a challenge. We can do better than that with the better product mix. Even our automated storage solutions is picking up. That will add to our EBIT margins.
Great, sir. Great. My second question is regarding the working capital cycle for this quarter. Sir, working capital cycle has been stretched a bit, and this is mainly not because of the debtor period or inventory period. It is because of the creditor period. So creditor period has significantly lower. So, and if you consistently see, last 4-5 years, you try to have maintained a similar kind of creditor period, which has decreased significantly this quarter. So what kind of is this a sustainable level, or what we have seen in 2-3 years going in the past, you would like to maintain the same working capital cycle for this year and going forward as well? Is it an aberration which happened in this quarter?
What started as an aberration last year, that the month-on-month pricing has updated. It's about 18 months since this happened. So I will not like to take any forward call whether it is going to be stable in the future. And whether it's a steel mill or whether it is a trader, even the steel mills are not honoring long-term contracts. If it's given order for 2 months delivery, they're putting a clause saying that the price at the time of delivery will prevail. So we are forced to pay up and or open LCs to secure our material. So this is the current trend, and when material is scarce, I think everybody is trying to get the pound of flesh or get the profitability out. You've seen some steel companies having EBITDA of around 30%, I would say. I'm not sure, I'm not an expert here, but you'll know better on this. So that is the way it is going today. It's in supply demand there's a huge mismatch. Once it stabilizes, I think our working capitals will improve. And today's shortage of material also, shipping is uncertain and supply is uncertain, and sometimes we will not be able to use our production or serve our customer in time, and because of that we may lose opportunity. So we are also sometimes paying up in advance to secure the material. So this will continue at least for quarters, but when it changes, I think it's for everyone, it's not for Craftsman alone.
Okay, sir. So my third question is regarding the value additions. Answering to the earlier, one of the earlier speaker, you said that value addition for this quarter has been lower than what we have seen in Q4. Sir, going ahead for the full year, do you expect the value addition for the business, specifically powertrain business and aluminum product business? Will it be improvement for the full year on a year-over-year basis, or it will remain on the same levels?
I mentioned that in FY21, the value addition on auto powertrain for the full year was 542 crore for the full year, last year. This H1, we already clocked at 361. So if we did just multiply it by 2, it is 722. So I think H2 will do better than H1. So I think we will cross 750 with 542 last year on the value add.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic. Sir, last question regarding the capex. What kind of capex you are planning for the full year?
We have completed 93 crore capex. Two things have changed since the last meeting. What has changed is we see that the CV cycle, we are more forecasting that it will come in back in FY24, but we see that it may come back in FY23. So we need to secure some capacities for certain equipment and as well as some space. We had earlier rented a space or taken a space in Jamshedpur, and we are running operations which we vacated in the pandemic. And when we tried to secure space again, we couldn't get a proper space, so we had to buy it out, another space for 12-13 crore. That has changed. Second thing I mentioned earlier, in Chennai, our plant is more or less full because of the Tier 2 exports, which has grown very well. And we see that the plant will need to increase capacity during the next financial year. Instead of again going for plant 2 and going for a greenfield project, we opted that we buy land within walking distance. It is not exactly adjacent, but it is something like in the same operations, same office, same staff, same maintenance people can operate. So we have taken a property of around 4-5 acres, and will be taken, of course, the 10-15 crore is added. The last thing is we see a lot of inflation in the manpower cost, which is very risky for us. So we are having a plan to somewhat semi-automate, automate, and change some machining processes to look at our wage bill not going up beyond a certain stage when the market comes back. We don't want to add people when next year when we are growing. So there is, I would say, very minor capex there, that is 10-20 crore, but that will come back very, very quickly in the wage bill itself in the next financial year itself. So we have we used a three-pronged strategy. Because of that, I think, and one more thing, all the machine prices, the steel prices for the whatever ongoing buildings which we have started last in the Q4 of last year, steel prices have gone up, the building prices have gone up. So because of that, we are now staring at a possibility that 180 crore will be the capex. But we are not worried about it in a way because we are going to get a cash accrual of around 320 to 340 crore in this particular year.
Okay, sir. So approximately around 180 to 190 crores will be the capex for this year.
Yes, and earlier we wanted to reduce our debt by 200 crore, but today optimistically still it is possible, but I will be more realistic and say that we will be reducing debt by 150 crore only. We'll close the debt around 550 crore versus 704 crore last year. Mainly one reason is that one thing, the capex, of course, we overshot a little, but we have also performed better than what we had thought in H1 compared to what it was earlier in spite of the pandemic. But the other possible problem is the commodity prices push the working capital cycle, and also the working capital requirement also higher. So because of that, we have to trace back a little from a 200 crore debt reduction to 550 crore. But one good thing is the debt to EBITDA, I think will be 1.1, 1.2. I think we will end this year. As I mentioned, we are at 1.46 now. We'll improve that to 1.2 by this year end.
Thank you so much, sir. That's all from my side. Thank you and all the best, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Joseph George from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Congratulations on good results. I had two questions, so I'll put across the first one. So that's in relation to the aluminium segment. If you recall, in the last call, you had mentioned that you expect the aluminium segment revenues to scale up to about 650-700 crores and about 18% EBITDA margin, I think in FY23. Just wanted to check whether you stick with that guidance. Is there an update on that, and how is new business coming in there?
I would look at the revenue of H1 in the auto aluminium. H1 has been very depressed, 189. We are likely to do around 220 to 240 crore in H2. So it will be better than H1. And with the more real-time pricing strategy on the aluminium pass-through, and we have cut down our cost of operations in line with the lower demand from our customers. The Q2 results will be not an aberration. I think we'll be able to improve it further going forward also. Q2, I will just read out the numbers from the...
So my question was actually in relation to the guidance that you had given in last con call, that in FY23, based on the new orders, you would target reaching about 650 crores of revenue and about 18% margins. It's got nothing to do with the second quarter numbers.
Yeah, now we are looking at around approximately 200 crore in or 220 crore in H2. It may go to 250 crores, still two-wheeler is not picked up. So we are looking at a run rate of almost 500 crore a year. But 500 crore is little misleading because of the aluminium prices. You have to take that into account.
Sure. And in FY23, that 650 crores that you're guided to, that is on, right?
That is on. That is on, and that is very clear. That is surely on. And the point is that capacity utilization, the margins compared to even Q2, it will improve, surely.
Understood, sir. Thank you. And the second question that I had was in relation to the new CapEx that you announced for a greenfield facility in Nagpur. So if you can, give some color on what new business you expect from there, maybe without naming, which customers are going to help you ramp up there. Because on one hand, you mentioned that your overall capacity utilization is not very high in response to an earlier question. And now since you're planning CapEx, if you can, help us understand why you plan to do the CapEx and what are the new orders or revenue ramp up that we expect in that new plant.
I will offer a perspective first. I think every customer is now looking at cutting down costs, and logistics and other things have become very costly after the diesel price increase. So they are trying to secure supplies from very close to them totally. And this particular customer has approached a foundry supplier and as well as machine supplier, and both of us are going to work strategically together. As things stand, it is still we have secured our business very clearly, and I think it is on. The business is on, but I will not like to comment on who is other supplier and who is other strategic partnership where we are having, and what is the benefit we are going to derive. The benefit is securing the business for a long time, and the incremental business is also there. Second thing is with having the leased premises in Pune, we have 3 premises, Plant 2, Plant 3 and Plant 4. Plant 1, of course, it was too small, we vacated it. So we have, between all the 3 plants, we are totaling to paying 1.2 crore as rental charges, which is appearing as depreciation and financial cost as per the India's accounting standards. And the Pune, I think capacity of the place is full. The capacity utilization of the auto lines, some of the auto products, I think still product has been launched, but the product production has not taken off because of chip shortage. The lines are practically very much underutilized, but those lines cannot be dismantled. But next year we are expecting full capacity utilization of those auto lines. We have also lines for the commercial vehicle for Tata Cummins. That is also some we have downsized, but we are again putting it back to shape in anticipation of demand. So all that is happening, but the space is full. We don't want to increase the rental cost there. So we thought logically this customer we are catering to from Pune, which will move there. And there is some advantage of some MIDC benefits, which will bring back the building and cost and everything to us over a period of time. I don't want to elaborate on what is the benefit we are going to get out of there. It is in public domain, anybody can look at it. At the same time, it frees up the space for us within Pune, because we got another good inquiry for a very good powertrain business, which is quite large in volume, and we are very close to clinching the deal, I would say. It may take, close means it takes 6 months. Please don't ask me next quarter. But when we have that, we don't want to go for again a new plant. So we want to contain costs. So this is a very, very strategic decision. In view of the point, the auto aluminum is more looking towards clarity going forward, and I&E is we are waiting for the capex cycle to come in India, auto powertrain being the biggest segment. And when we can leverage that and we can grow by 20-30%, I guided for only low double-digit growth, I would say, in the teens only. But now we are pushing for more than 20% growth on the auto powertrain, which is quite good for us. And we have a lot of, I would say, depreciated assets which are available with us. Number one, all the capex mission and the machinery cost has gone very, very high now, and also the delivery periods have gone very high. And we, with our in-house SPM manufacturing and our relationship with the machinery manufacturers, we now are in the entry barrier for anybody in this auto powertrain business for machining has become huge, I would say. So we are going to continue to grow on this segment in the next 2-3 years.
Understood, sir. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhishek Jain from Dolat Capital. Please go ahead.
Thanks for opportunity, sir. Sir, despite increase in contribution from the pure machining, powertrain business has gone down because of the extraordinary items. So can we expect it will come back to the 35 to 36% margin?
Mr. Abhishek Jain, I would like to say that the auto powertrain is not fully machining charges. It is some combination of machining charges and supply with material where we are buying a lot of castings from various reputed or market leaders in the foundry. We are buying it. So the everything is not value addition there. It is a mixture of both. So the top line has somewhat gone up because of the commodity price increase. Customer has passed on to us, and we have passed on to our foundry partners. So this one thing, one extraordinary item on the it's not an extraordinary item. We took the time off during the COVID situation. Post-COVID, a lot of maintenance was pending. We corrected that with some repair and maintenance. So we are ready for increase of volumes now. So with the capacity utilization improving, our margins will improve.
So can we expect that it will come back to 35 to 36% as that contribution from the pure machining is improving?
No, see, we look at the absolute number, it will grow at a very strong 2-digit. That we have to see. Top line sometimes when what we do as job work is suppose converted with material, suddenly the top line will grow by 50 crore for nothing, practically. So the top line percentage is not the right way to look at it. You can take away the COGS and look at the value addition. As a value addition percentage of the EBITDA, we'll be able to grow with better capacity utilization. Yes, it will improve.
Okay, sir. Sir, what is the contribution of the Tier 2 export in the powertrain business, mainly to the Daimler Brazil and the Nelcast? And how much growth are you looking ahead?
It is growing at Tier 2 exports are certain for Brazil, we are at a stable level. But if the market looks like next year is going to improve in Brazil, if it improves, we will also improve because we are single supplier there. The advantage on Tier 2 with Nelcast, I think is better for Nelcast to answer. A lot of projects are there in the pipeline, which I am not allowed to speak on that because we are not dealing with the end customer. We know what it is, and we are working with them very closely, but I will not like to reveal the customers.
So how much is the contribution of the Tier 2 export in overall powertrain business?
Currently, it is almost same because on the passenger vehicle segment, we had a little setback on the turbocharger parts which were going for the diesel engines. So that was compensated by increase in the other commercial vehicle segment. That is why we have shown growth in the H1 or Q2 at least.
Okay, sir. And sir, next question is related with this industrial segment. As you mentioned that RM cost is passed on the contract manufacturing and industrial casting segment, but it looks difficult for the storage solutions segment. But the storage solution segment is growing faster, and this quarter or this in first half also it has gone up significantly. So can we come back to the earlier margin of 20% if this storage solution will contribute more?
Totally, we look at Q2, which has been not a profitable on the industrial engineering segment. We have a 12% EBIT. So I think 15% EBIT is realistic to look forward on the I&D segment.
Okay, sir. And sir, in digital engineering segment, what sort of the opportunity are you looking from the gearbox housing, especially for the wind energy, both domestic and export front? And what is the contribution of it now?
Sorry, I stand to be corrected. It is not EBIT has been 12 crore. So I'm not saying that is. We will go to an EBIT level of 10 to 15%, depending on which segment grows, I would say.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question is, I was talking about this opportunity in the gearbox housing in export and the domestic front both, and what is the contributions right now from this business? Hello?
Today, I think around 10-15% is coming from Tier 2 exports, and it is growing. It is growing, at least the pie is growing. Certain one or two, as I said, turbocharger parts business on which is going to Europe has reduced, but it is growing on commercial vehicle area.
Okay, sir. My last question is related with that content per vehicle, as the demand of the heavy duty trucks is going to improve in the coming quarter. How much will you benefit in terms of the content per vehicle and client additions? You are already supplied to Tata Motors and Daimler, who are leader in the heavy duty trucks. So how much outperformance do you see in terms of your powertrain business because of this?
If you watch carefully, I think you'd have seen that even though the numbers in the market has come down, our revenue has not proportionally dropped on the powertrain, on the commercial vehicle business, because today what is selling is the heavy duty commercial vehicle, which is the most viable to operate on the long haul requirements. So today the medium duty is not selling much. That far I think the numbers in the market is showing, and with that I think it will be more proportional to the growth in the sales in numbers now.
And how much increase in content per vehicle do you see in
It is already done, Mr. Abhishek, it is already done. In the last year itself, I think there is no much of medium duty sales, and we are also not catering to medium duty sales, and only the commercial heavy duty has been selling in the last year, more so in this year also. So already the vehicle content has gone up, and even though numbers are very low today, I think the number will grow. So our revenue has not dropped much because of the content per vehicle has improved in the last 2-3 years, and now it is at a very stable level. And I don't think it will go up. Content per vehicle cannot go up from now, because we are catering mostly to the heavy duty segment only.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. That's all from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Navin Vijay from NS Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. My question is a general overview on the auto aluminum business. Where do you see it going forward on the next 5 years? And are we using smart outsourcing given the excess capacity that is available for die casting and foundry in and around Coimbatore? Thank you.
Thank you much for the question. We have two operations for die casting, high pressure die casting. We have one in Coimbatore and one in Bangalore. Both are integrated facilities along with machining. Of course, we have die making in Coimbatore tool room, which is quite unique, and we have got a very good facility on par with the rest of the world, I would say. So I think the higher tonnage machines are situated in Coimbatore, where we can cater to both the domestic requirement and export requirement. Yes, those capacities are not fully utilized, but there is some product which we have secured orders from the commercial vehicles. The dies are almost in place now, and we are going to start production in the Q4. We are just making the samples, and there's some proto testing that needs to be done. So Q4 we will start with better utilization. While EV, we are getting some inquiries from two-wheeler players and all, but nobody is giving any volume number projection very strongly. And the design of the vehicle itself is undergoing a lot of change, because the cost structure of these vehicles are very, very high today, and they seem to be redesigning very strongly what was on certain parts on gravity die casting. They're trying to convert to high pressure die casting. So in this sort of situation, we will be spending a lot of energy trying to develop these parts without volumes, and again going through iteration of design change, because many of them are startup companies, and we will not know how they will be performing after a year or two. So we are reserving our capacities more towards the larger OEMs where we are familiar with, and we are looking at more mature designs coming from, because I understand the vehicle product cost, even after subsidy, is not able to break even. There seems to be a huge gap between the selling price and the manufacturing price, which is unrealistic to continue. Even if FAME-3 comes in, more subsidies given, still I see that as a threat to anybody they'll be burning cash. So we are waiting and watching there. But these capacities are generic capacities. Today we have one quite a decent order. I will not say it's a big order. It is a good beginning, I would say, for the farm sector on the transmission parts. We are the first one to get some orders in India. I think we have made the dies. We are in the process of making the dies in-house. We'll have the first samples ready in January. This is for us it's a breakthrough where one more segment. Earlier only heavy duty commercial vehicle, the transmission parts were of aluminum, but now some of the smaller agriculture sector, tractors are also going to use aluminum. I think this is a very good sign for us. We see aluminum die casting as partly, mostly auto, but I would say partly also non-auto. We can cater to the industrial engineering segment also, but I think there we are on the lookout, but I think we are also waiting for the economy to come back, for some demand to come back.
Thank you, sir. That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Chetan Kanodia from AlfAccurate Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the opportunity and congratulations for a great set of numbers. Sir, wanted to understand, firstly, what is our mix for the powertrain segment into CV, commercial vehicle, passenger vehicle, and tractors and others?
I didn't understand the question. You talked about auto powertrain in the CV, commercial, passenger vehicle segment, farm sector, and what was the question?
What is the revenue mix for powertrain segment for this quarter?
Oh, okay. Revenue mix, it is still always more than 50% of the powertrain business is coming from commercial vehicles only. You want the revenue or?
Percentage of revenue, if it is possible.
Okay. I will give you the absolute number and the total number. 266 crore. I mean, with a total of 524. So it is. Use your line, please, because.
Yes, sure.
In the total pie of the auto powertrain business, the commercial vehicle is 51%, the farm sector is 21%, off-highway is 20%, passenger vehicles is 8%.
Okay. And you said that we are not currently working with EV companies. So, what are the components that in the future we can do for electric vehicle companies, both in the powertrain and in the aluminum forging business?
Aluminum casting, the casting business. We are in the gravity die casting, we are in the low pressure die casting, we are also in high pressure die casting on the aluminum business. I will now stick to the answering what is the potential for EV in the auto powertrain business. In the auto powertrain business, in the pickup trucks, or you look at even the SUVs and things like that, it is not going to be linear, mostly on the heavier vehicles, like a motor which is coming down to the directly onto the wheel. It will be more a centralized motor, and the motor RPM, when it increases, the power consumption is disproportionately high. And you might have also noticed in the passenger vehicle of the car, when you're driving at 50 km speed, there is a particular consumption. When you double the speed, the battery drains out very fast. It is not advisable to use the motor at a higher speed. So most of the light duty commercial vehicles or pickup trucks or something like that, which is going to operate within the vicinity of the cities, maybe 100, 200, 300 kilometer radius, or even the auto rickshaws, they will go to the also have a gearbox. They'll have a gearbox of 2-speed or 3-speed. Maybe mostly it will be high and low. And these gearboxes, if it is maybe for an auto rickshaw, it may be aluminum, but on a passenger vehicle, it will also be aluminum. But for the trucks, the torque is not, the aluminum will not withstand it. So we are getting inquiries as Tier 2 from various customers. We are getting as machining of these housings for export. Already these products have been designed in North America, and products will be introduced in the market next year. So that business also will start coming in.
So you are referring to driveline gears, or you are referring more to hybrids?
No, I'm talking about E-axle.
Okay. Any other say engine components for which we have the capability to do machining, or for which we can get orders?
We have construction machinery, not only like JCBs or something like that, but also the heavy-duty commercial engines. We are supplying to North American market, the leader there. We are supplying parts from India for quite a long time now. So I think we are generic. We are not related only to the automotive field in the auto powertrain business. Mostly auto, but we can for stationary engines, for industrial applications, engines powered by gas. Also, we are supplying parts, or we are machining cylinder blocks for them. So we also look at India will be going to become a global hub for these sort of industrial engine manufacturing for the global market. These generators are not going to go away anywhere in the world, because even North America there are hurricanes, and every year there's huge sales for generator for the home application also. So this business is going to continue, and we are sector agnostic in the automotive powertrain. We can machine anything in cast iron. We can also machine industrial parts also. The same machines can be used, but we have classified that when we move machinery to the industrial engine segment, we classified I&E business. But I think it's only a pure machining business.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Dhaval Shah from Swan Investments. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, sir. Sir, in this industrial engineering, FY 2021 we have done 18-19% EBIT. Then why are we guiding for a lower number?
Main reason is the top line is getting bloated or inflated because of the raw material price. Steel was 40 rupees on the racking business, now it is around 75-80 rupees. So when you are passing on the steel price to the customer, for that passing on will not get a margin, only for the value addition we do. So the top line is looking bloated. That is the problem.
Okay. Got it, sir. So in this also our contribution is what we should be looking at.
Yes, unfortunately in the past we used to have a small movement of material cost, 3%, 5% per year or some adjustment. So if you need to look at percentages, it will be more or less stable or moving in one line over the number of years. But today we had an 100% increase in raw material. The percentages do not fit in anymore.
Okay. So in a conversion business, basically your percentage will not matter now.
Yes, when we are buying steel at 40 rupees, doing a value addition of 20 rupees earlier. Now we are buying steel and doing a value addition of 20 rupees. So we'll get our margin on the 20 rupees only.
Okay, so would you, in such scenario, in future share some per unit matrix for us to understand the business better? Because something of that sort if you can share.
That is why we always talk about value addition as a company, because that is the value addition is this year we are looking at 1,100, 1,200 crore as a value addition. That is what we get paid for. Other things are commodity, whether we buy a bearing or buy steel or buy ingots of aluminum or cast iron. I think we don't do value add. Our EBITDA margins come from the value add what we do. So I think today commodity prices, aluminum has gone from last year, January it was 108 rupees in 2020, and now it is 240 rupees today. So these percentages are no longer fitting into the game now.
So this year you are looking for 1,200 crore contribution.
No, what I'm trying to say, we measure ourselves by contribution. We look at H1, we have done 524 crore, and as an 545 crore as the value addition for H1, and we estimate that H2 will be better than H1 on the value addition.
Okay, 543 crore at the company level, right?
545 is what we have done. That is how we measure. So
when you say contribution, it is all cost except your fixed cost.
Yeah, no, it is all costs other than COGS. Cost of goods sold. Other than cost of goods sold.
Okay. Now, sir, if you want to do around roughly 500 crores of EBIT in the powertrain business, what would be our fixed cost?
No, 500 crore on the EBIT are not on the auto powertrain business. The value addition for the entire company is 545 crore. On the powertrain.
No, I'm asking from a EBIT point. If you have to do a 500 crore EBIT in the powertrain business, what sort of fixed cost will we carry?
500 crore EBIT, no, we are not doing that amount of 500 crore EBIT. It is a far away number.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I will just read out the EBIT. EBIT for the auto powertrain for H1 is 148 crore.
Correct. No, I was just looking, years down the line. Just want to understand the fixed cost structure of the company.
Oh, fixed cost. Oh, okay, I'll answer that. Thank you for the question. I think fixed cost, the bulk of the fixed cost is coming from the manpower cost.
Manpower, okay.
Yeah. Below of course, the depreciation, we have taken already out of the EBITDA, and we are talking about EBIT. After what makes the constitution make the EBIT better will be the manpower cost and other consumable like tools, coolant, oil, and things like that, repair and maintenance, and power. So we are working very, very strongly to reduce all these costs. Okay.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Srinivasan Ravi for closing comments.
Thank you for all attending the meeting, taking a valuable time off, and with every question asked, I think we also learned a lot of things where to focus, and what we need to do for the coming quarters is for every situation where there's a chaos or there's a change, there is also an opportunity. That is what we look at it in a way how we can manage the business better. We are a very versatile company. That is the big advantage what we have, and we can move from one segment to another segment very quickly, and we can capitalize on the opportunity going forward. We have a good made an I would say wise decision on capex for many years, and this today will hold us in good state. But when the new capex is going to be very, very expensive for many of the people, a good entry barrier which will be there, and India is going to become a global hub on the auto powertrain business on the heavy duty area because of the policies of our Asian neighbor, where there is a the workforce is shrinking, and one-child policy, and the cost of labor is going up, and the global warming, power shortage, and I think most of them are looking at exports out of India, and the other Asian countries looks like only going to manufacture for their own needs. The market is quite big now. So with this huge opportunity and our government pushing for huge capex plans in the near future, our I&D, and during the last 2-3 years, very difficult years, BS6 and now the pandemic, and we have sailed through that. We are looking for better opportunities in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of Craftsman Automation Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.